Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me once again. We've been trying to get this show scheduled with this gentleman for some time now, and I'm glad that we finally got it narrowed down to today. But I'm really happy that my good friend Sid McNairy has joined me on Dad Up. Thank you for joining me, brother. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Um, so Sid and I have kind of connected through, we built our connection through Clubhouse originally, and I've just kind of grown since then. And I'm really excited. He's got a great story, and I'm really excited that he is on to share his story and talk a little bit about the things that he's doing and all that. So Sid, for my listeners who may not know who you are, let's kind of go through a backstory, kind of how you grew up, and then obviously what you're doing today, and then obviously about your kids as well.
Yeah, I'll say my backstory started obviously when I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I was there for 7 years, and my parents moved us to Oakland, and then back to Baton Rouge, and eventually to Washington D.C., where I spent most of my years from 7 until I left for college. When I left, I went to Purdue and continued in sports. Sports started for me at the age of 7, and at 8 years old, I was introduced to meditation because of the level of sports I was in, and so that helped really guide my life. And everywhere I went, my high school football coach, my collegiate coaches, and they all taught meditation. So when I
Hmm.
left Purdue from playing soccer and started coaching football, I went to Eastern Illinois, and my when I was working on my master's degree, one of the professors said, "Hey, you're going to teach everybody to meditate." Now, I didn't feel like he knew what I had done in my past, uh, but somehow that was part of my journey. It was really that everybody would teach me that, but also I would learn to teach it and bring that forward, not only for my family, for myself, but for my community, and having that connection to really a deeper knowing of how I'm creating everything in my reality, and it starts in my thoughts.
Okay, so you're 8 being taught how to meditate. I can't imagine trying to teach an 8-year-old how to meditate. Um, so you learn it. I mean, for me as a grown adult, I'm not real good at meditation. I have a tendency, I have to be constantly doing something. I can't just sit still. How do how do you teach somebody how to meditate? I mean, how does that work?
Well, I mean, it's really one and the same, whether I'm teaching it to someone who's older or a youngster. And I'd say the first thing is, you know, if I were to say to someone right now, all right, let's meditate, and I just sat down and started meditating, they're going to look at me and say, all right, what's this guy doing?
Right,
Right.
right.
And a kid does that, especially because they're learning how to even move in the world. And so, in that sense, I'd say that I must first embody it, whatever that looks like. One of my teachers, Iyengar, used to say when he was alive, he would say that for the first 30 years of anything connected to yoga, and meditation is very much part of yoga, uh, you are a beginner. And so for the first 30 years of meditating, I didn't come close to trying to teach it. It was
Mm.
really about me learning it. Now, my children picked it up because they would be near me and they would just imitate it. Oh, I'm just supposed to sit still, and I'll peek at dad and see if he's moving and all those things. And so I think that's the number one thing is, and that not just in meditation, but really, if I want to teach someone something, I choose to be it first. So
Okay. All right. I got it. And now, when it comes to you're mentioning your kids, how many kids you have again? What are their ages?
three. I have a 27-year-old, a 24-year-old, and a 22. Two boys and then a girl.
Okay. And they watched you meditate, they watched you do yoga and all that stuff. Is that something that they got into? Are they doing it today? I mean, is that part of their regular routine?
Well, definitely my oldest, it became really a part of his life. I mean, he grew up in football, and then in the second half of his life, or well, not even second half, when he was 8 years old, he was introduced to really into yoga more so than before, because before, when I was in football, when he was born, was pretty much the year before he was born, I started doing yoga, the asana practice. So
Okay.
by the time he was aware of what he was watching, if you were in the living room, and back then it was VHS tapes, and so I was doing yoga from a tape, from a video. And so he would see that, and that became part of his awareness of, oh, this is just what people do. So then, by the time he started teaching when he was 13, teaching to adults and
Oh,
kids and
wow.
everybody. Yeah. So, I mean, I remember I took him on the road. I was teaching in Connecticut when he was 14, and I said to the teacher, I said, my son could teach a class, and he got paid like $140 for the hour, right? So like for a 14-year-old, that's, and most people, 140 an hour is pretty good,
Right.
good change, right? So he was like, yeah. I mean, that was kind of how I hooked him in to teaching, was you can have money in your pocket. Nobody's going to give a 13-year-old a job, right?
Right.
They're not going to give you a job, but I'll give you a job if you can teach. And so that was easy for me to convince him that he should do yoga, right? Or teach yoga. And so then when I took him on the road, it was I said, okay, we've got the same name. So everyone showed up thinking I was going to teach, you know?
So
And
his name being Sid also.
yeah, you got it. You got it. And so I was like, all right, I told the owner of the studio, I'm going to leave because I want him to just be able to teach. I don't want people to think, oh, why isn't Sid teaching? Whatever. And so when I came back, I got there early when he was done, and they were like, we were really pissed that you weren't here. That was absolutely amazing.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
uh, yeah, so there was that. And then when he went away to play for one of my football players, he played at Western Michigan. He called home and was like, Dad, I don't want to play football anymore. I want to be able to just teach yoga. And uh and so he came home, and eventually he bought me out of my yoga studio, and all those things. And so it was really, really pretty awesome.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And how about your two younger ones? Are they into it or?
Not like he is. Now they did it, my other one was 6 when he started, my daughter was 4. They my middle son, he used it for football, especially during that time, to be limber and all those things. And when he stopped football, he started girls. And so yoga kind of, he like, if he came here and I said, hey, I'm going to do a yoga class, he would definitely go.
Yeah.
Yet it's not something he's working at. I think he probably stretches on his own, but he doesn't really get into yoga in that sense. And then my daughter used it. I mean, she's so flexible and became a cheerleader and all that stuff. And but neither one of them really do it now. They may sit. They can sit without their phones. That's what I know. And are they calling it meditation? I have no clue.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, because as a coach, obviously you've coached before. I've coached for 20 years, from youth all the way up to high school, and I've been told from time to time, I've actually considered it as a coach. I've recently retired, but I've actually considered it as a coach in the past of introducing yoga to my players. And I think for coaches, it's a good opportunity to get these players into stretching and moving their bodies, in helping their bodies really stretch and work out. I mean, yoga is hard. It's a workout. Um, I'm curious though. I know the importance of it, but you have to explain to me the whole process of goat yoga. What in the world is? I know what it is, but I mean, why? What is goat yoga, and what's that all about?
Well, I think anything can be good. I've never done it, so I can't even. I have no interest in having a goat run on my back. You know,
That's
I
kind of
I I mean, I go out in the ocean and I'm not diving off my surfboard to go swim with the dolphins, even though they're there.
right.
So just because the goats are on land doesn't mean I got to do yoga with them.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. I was just curious to know if you knew. But yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I will say, like some people really have have a don't get to be around animals and things like that. And so there is that level of connection, I think, that is what some people are looking for. When it comes to yoga, yoga has been in my life so long, I try to keep it away from any gimmicks. Like I'm not going to happy hour yoga. If I want to go to happy hour, I don't drink. But if I want to go to happy hour and hang out with my friends, I'm going to happy hour. I'm not going to, or we can go to yoga. I
right.
don't have to mix those two. So for me, yeah, I'm old school that way. And my yoga practice is my yoga practice, and I'm practicing to better myself for life.
Right. Right.
So I
Okay.
don't necessarily want to drink while I'm doing it.
Fair enough. All right. So let's kind of dive into the kind of the parenting side of things when it comes to, teaching our kids about maybe yoga or even meditation for that matter. Let me ask you this: if a parent were to come up to you and go, "Hey, Sid, I know this is important, but I'm not really sure why this would be important for my kids. Why is meditation and yoga a good for us and good for our children?"
Well, in this world of everything's go, 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 it when you're doing yoga, when I'm doing yoga, my phone, especially if I go to a yoga studio, my phone is away. Like, so it gives that time for me to disconnect from everything and be with myself. It's one major thing I love about surfing. I'm not taking my phone or electronics into the ocean, right? Because eventually they're not going to work. So I would say, for especially for the parents that are searching for how to get a disconnect for their kids, that's a big one. Like, take them to a yoga class. Now, what I'll say is the parents that bring in their phone into the room, their kids are still connected to the phone too. So I'm a big proponent of you got to be what you want everybody else to be around you. So that's one. I mean, I've watched over the years I taught yoga to our whole football team at Morgan State, right, for a couple of years. And we shifted the amount of injuries for the whole team. We
Mm,
went from the second most injured team to the second least, and went from losing to for 24 years to turning it into a winning program. And so there was that level of mindset that takes place that doesn't necessarily happen without yoga. It could, but yet it's easier. It was easier for me and our coaches to let our players become more focused by having them do an hour worth of yoga. And so that was a really another big deal. At least for I watch my children. I mean, how many people can say their 23-year-old bought them out of their business, right?
right.
So that, and my other son graduated number one in his class in engineering. My daughter graduated in 3.5 from University of Florida and went on to, she's now at Texas Tech doing her thing with in PA school. So in that sense, there's proof in the pudding, as we say as coaches. you know
Right.
so for me, putting 23 guys in the NFL, all of which that I taught at least meditation. A lot of them I had gotten to a point of teaching them yoga. 23 out of 49, when they say 1 in 300 make it, there's a lot to that.
Right.
It was something that they had that was different than most people. So having that place of stillness of mind and knowing how to direct myself and my kids knowing how to do that, I think is better for my life.
Yeah, I think for our kids, especially now. I mean, maybe when you and I grew up, we didn't have as all the things around us when it comes to the electronics and all that. It's a lot easier for kids now to to see things, get addicted to things, especially with electronics. And I think when I think about meditation, I think just what you said, it allows them to disconnect from that stuff and just be with themselves and really focus on and center on who they are. And I think that's not only is that yoga being a part of their lives is good for their body to help stretch them and move them and keep them, as you were talking about, keep them injury free. But the meditation side of things really helps calm them and helps them really focus on who they are. And I just see it as a huge benefit. It's something that I wish I would have taught my boys when they were younger. And I didn't, but I wish I would have, because I do see it as a very important part of our children's lives to kind of help them disconnect and just really be with themselves and help control their thoughts, like you were talking about earlier, really learning their thoughts, because our thoughts drive what we do, right? So learning their thoughts and how to control them, especially when they go through challenging times, where they have something come up at school or with their friends, being in control of their thoughts. And I think that only comes from really learning how to meditate and do it right and do it properly. So it's really cool. When it comes to maybe tools and strategies that parents can use, what to teach their kids how to do this, what kind of tools or strategies would you recommend?
Well, I've got several books that people can go and pick up. Yoga and Life Empowerment, The Secret Weapon, which helps with meditation, The Warrior Within, all the Path to Peace, all these different ways. And there's a lot of teachers out there that, one thing I would say when it comes to finding someone to follow in any way, especially with children, I think a lot of people take for granted how much an impact a coach can be
Mm.
on all of us. And so
Good or
making
bad?
sure, right, exactly. So making sure that I resonate and that I'm turning my children over to somebody I want them to emulate is an important part of it. So finding someone that first and foremost that they relate to and is that's living the life that you want to see, you know. And if that's the case, then get behind that person, stay with them for a while, walk the walk. It takes time. So I think one thing for sure is that as a practitioner and as a parent, that I take responsibility for how things play out. And that means I've got to, for me, I pause and look at it and say, okay, what's this going to look like? What have I seen before? Like what have I seen before of this person that or another person? And now does this person look like that? And if so, and it's not where I want to go, then find another person. It no to actually think that we're gonna get something different when we keep seeing the same things in so many different avenues is a miss to me. Like
Mm.
let's start looking at, all right, what can we bring forward that we actually want to see
Mm.
for
And
sure.
would you, I'm sure you would agree that, through emulation of us, how our kids see us and how we react to things or don't react to things, I think is super important. And I think that's a huge part of, trying to teach them meditation or maybe yoga. Like you said, your kids watched you do it. They participated when they were younger, when you were doing yoga or meditating. We talked about, yeah, I know you and I have talked about the quiet game, who could be quiet the longest, that kind of thing, that teaches kids, hey, we're going to play this quiet game, but at the same time we're meditating right now and you don't even realize it because we're playing the quiet game. But I think that's cool, and I think that's how kids really learn from us as parents, is just kind of emulating what we do. And super cool, super important. I know that when parents have young kids, particularly young kids that are playing maybe sports or in extracurricular activities, there could tend to be a lot of chaos in the house. Things are busy, things are moving. We're constantly doing stuff for our kids. We're constantly taking them here. So there's a sense of chaos at times in our home. How do we as parents create a calm in the chaos of family life?
Well, I learned, there's this saying of Navy SEALs: slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So I remember when my kids were really young and they were starting to go to school. And on Fridays was the one day I would have the morning off early in the football season after 2 days and all those things, right? So we'd have Fridays off because that would be a chance for us to reload after 2 days and get ready for the season ahead and recruiting and all those things. And when we were at Morgan State and I was off on Friday and I'm like I'm gonna sleep an extra hour, and the house got chaotic, right? It was just like noise going, mom yelling, trying to get the kids out. We're gonna be late, all this stuff. And finally, the next week, I said on Thursday, I said, "All right, I'm going to take them, and you just get ready." Obviously, it wasn't going to be my peaceful day, so I'll create peace in the house, and then I'll have peace. And so I told the kids the night before, get your stuff out. Tomorrow we're gonna play a game. I'm into games, like especially with kids, because if you make it a game, it becomes fun, even though they may be learning discipline. And so I said, so in the morning, we're gonna play, we're gonna be quiet. It's called the whisper game. And we're gonna whisper everything. And the idea is to be so quick that your mom, when she comes to the car, everybody has peace. So they did that. They got up, they moved slowly. My daughter started crying because she couldn't reach the cereal and didn't know how to tell everybody because she's trying to whisper. And it was and that became their way of being, like really to be somewhat quiet and move slow enough that things get done easy. And we were sitting in the car laughing. I'm in the passenger seat because they're all in the back seat. And then when their mom was looking for everybody, kind of still in a panic of what, where are they? I gotta go, you know. And then she came down and realized, wait a minute, they're already ready.
Right.
Yeah, and so that shifted our house. Like that became uh, kind of a way of being for me. When things get hectic, I slow down and I get quiet. I get more quiet. If I need to speak to someone, if I whisper, they have to come down in their demeanor and meet
Mm-hmm.
me there. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I love it was in Gladiator was kind of the moment that I picked that up. He was, you know, sitting with Maximus. They just came from war. He's trying to tell Maximus he's going to take over and be the Caesar and all this stuff. And they're already talking about something very important. And he said, let's have a whisper. And they got really quiet. And that whisper caused them to really focus in on each other
Mm-hmm.
here. Right. And so I took that on as okay, this is how I can bring more peace into the midst of chaos. And I've done it with football teams, basketball teams, with my own children, with yoga studios, all those different things. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So the
Mm-hmm.
more I slow down and take the precise steps as opposed to hectic, moving around, trying to rush, and now we forgot something. We're 2 blocks down the street. We got to turn around and go get the balls. Then it's like, all right, did we really just speed up going nutty? No. So I really that's something I just take on. And I think most parents get more amped to get things
Mm-hmm.
moving faster, which actually causes a disruption and slows things down. So in the midst of chaos, especially, I slow down and get precise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that because I think when I think about my own family, I think about the times that there's been chaos within the house. And it's interesting when you take on that role of just kind of slowing down and being quiet, how quickly the mood with everybody else changes or shifts, and how quiet the home does become, or the chaos that was there does kind of quiet down. I think about my wife's a school teacher, and she's had times in the past, you know, teaching younger kids where there would be so much chaos in the classroom that she'll lower her voice, not quite a whisper, but she'll lower it down. She's not yelling at them to quiet down and get seated, but she'll lower her voice so quietly that they have to stop the chaos in order to hear what she's saying when she's talking. And it's crazy how quiet the classroom gets so they can hear her. And she's literally calmed the chaos. So that's a great point, and well said.
I mean,
Um,
I used to even do this thing with my children, especially in my second marriage. I had three kids and she had three kids. So six kids in a house that know each other. It's like a pack of freaking wolves. and they can plot against you. They got it all. They're it's on. And we created a meditation room. And if we said that if any of the kids were ever in trouble and getting, and it felt way too much, they could say, I'm going to go meditate. And they could go to the room and just sit and meditate
hmm.
and get out of that chaos. And that's something that I kept with me after we got divorced. I kept with me anyway. Like, all right. And I don't have to necessarily go to the meditation room to do it. I can be in a heated situation and I can just pull back and come into myself so that it shifts like you said your wife did in the classroom. And that's just a tool that anyone can do, but it has to be practiced. You know, it isn't, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Hmm.
I've got to put it into practice. I've got to keep going until I get it to be perfect, at least to where I want it to be. And so all those little tools, I mean, we use in my house, we have a Native American talking stick. If things are hectic, we sit down, we take the stick out, and we say, okay, if you don't have the stick, you don't talk. Here's what we're talking about. Pass the stick. Now everybody gets the stick, but you don't get to talk till the stick comes back to you. So you have to sit and actually reflect and be inside of myself before I speak about something that I may have even started as the conversation. Now I've got to listen to everybody, and so then that is transferred with me into my life to I can listen and evaluate without the need to just be reacting over and over. So there's a lot of different tools that people can put into play, and those are a couple that I use.
It's interesting that you bring up the talking stick. I mean, the take the stick, because I've been in a few of your rooms on Clubhouse where you do that process where it's in Clubhouse. For those of you that don't know, in Clubhouse, you're in a room, virtual room, essentially with other people, and you can hear them talk and speak and share, ideas or whatever it is that the topic is. But Sid runs rooms that they actually do that. I'll take the stick. That's what the next person says. I'll take the stick, and then it's their turn to talk, and everybody else is quiet. So you do that same practice in Clubhouse. So that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
mean, wherever I am, that's who I am. You know, my players used to come to my house when they would first come, and we'd bring like all of my football players to the house and have a dinner. And they'd be like, "Coach, you're a coach at home?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm a coach at home. I'm Sid. So wherever I go, I'm Sid." And now, in life, what that's done for me is if it's not working, I shift how Sid is being, right? And if it is working, why wouldn't I bring it everywhere I go? So it just works like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, for dads, now speaking as a dad, I've done yoga before, and it was very tough, very hard, because my wife and I did we had like a little Groupon thing where we did like a 30 or 60-day thing where we were going to yoga once or twice a week, and it was tough. It was hard to learn, but I enjoyed it because there was this calmness or this peacefulness around it, even though you're stretching and moving your bodies in ways that you didn't realize you could, or maybe uncomfortable. There's a sense of calmness or peacefulness around it. When it comes to meditation, there have been times and I'm just talking for myself, but there have been times where I have, just sat and just been quiet and just, thought about different things that are coming up in my mind. And that tends to get a little difficult for me because I've had, anxiety or stress over different things. So my mind's constantly running when I try to get quiet. But for dads, if they want to take on maybe meditation, um, why is that good for us as dads to really, I guess practice that, or at least attempt to practice that.
Well, I'd say for one, if for some reason someone doesn't have peace in their life, that's a great place to start.
Mm.
It's just having peace inside of themselves. And so that's one. Second, I like to, I know the power. I ask people this often when I first start coaching with them. Do you know the power of your thoughts? And most people say yes. And I'll say, what do I mean? Well, my thoughts create my reality. All right, so then why would I allow myself to have anything but a positive thought if I know it's creating my reality? Now, meditation gives me the space to witness my thoughts so that if I'm having a repetitive thought, which would be in the subconscious mind, if I'm having repetitive thoughts that continue to create this world that I no longer wish to have around, I want to be able to see them so I can shift that. If I'm in a marriage that's struggling, if I'm having altercations with my children, everything comes from a thought, or I wouldn't even see it that way. Like I could see someone angry and I could react to them and get in a fight with them, or I could have compassion for them. Both of those interactions come from my thoughts. And so I choose, that's what meditation's done for me. It's given me the ability to observe my thoughts and choose how I want to entertain my thoughts. And so for dads, I mean, I think it's so easy to get lost in the workload of the day.
Mhm.
Not that every dad works and it's okay if they don't, or not that every woman doesn't work and it's okay if they do. And so, yet in this life where most people are working, most houses have two people working. And so if they have two people working and they come off of work, how do they get back to center and find peace at home? To me, that's meditation. And that can come in many different forms. Sitting, being, passing a talking stick, creating that way of being that gives breath to the moment. He breathed the word. So I'm breathing into existence how things are happening. If I'm hectic on the inside, I'm creating a hectic life. That's why I love these schools that have the children now. The tension is go sit in meditation.
Mm.
In India, one of my meditation teachers was Goenka Ji. He taught at the time, he's no longer alive, Vipassana, it's called Vipassana meditation. And when people would go to prison, they would teach them Vipassana. Now, Vipassana at that level, you're in a cell that's literally you can only sit down or stand up. You can't lay down. They put you in a cell that big. It's a
Oh,
box.
wow. Oh, wow.
And you have to go in there and observe yourself. So you're in there for like an hour and then you come out and they teach you. And their percentage of returnees of criminals is way less than, gosh, I think it's like not even a quarter of what we have.
Mm.
Because most people are not looking to be complete jerks in life. They're being a jerk because they want to get something. And so if the chaos continues to bring them in chaos, they don't even know how to get to that something, but they keep doing what they know. And that's why it's so important to me, especially for someone who I had a great childhood and also had moments of things that were different. Everybody does. Everybody
Mm.
has something. And so with that being said, I could have just put that on my children
Right.
and I chose to figure myself out, which looked like going deeper into looking at me, which is meditation. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think about, if I were to sit and really think or attempt to meditate, um, I think that I would have a lot of the thoughts that would, at least this is what I would think would happen. A lot of the thoughts within my mind would pop up would be those that are the most stressful, or those that are that cause me the most anxiety, or the busyness of the day. How do I control that? I mean, how do I mean, dads, like we're talking specifically to dads, but this is really for moms too. How do we control those thoughts? Like, I've got a million things going on in my mind right now, and I'm stressed about these handful of items. How do I control those things when I'm trying to meditate?
So first I'll say this. Meditation isn't about, for me, some people might say it differently. Meditation is about being able to observe my thoughts, not to stop my thoughts. If I stop
Okay.
my thoughts, I could become brain dead, and that's not cool. And so I just want to observe them as opposed to fighting them. If I'm fighting a thought, like here's a thought, I want to stop it. I'm creating another thought in order to do that, right? So that's one, is just let go of the idea of I need to shut my thoughts off, but watch them. And now when a thought comes up, it's like watching a movie. There goes the subtitles. Let it go by. And now sit in the gap, the space between the thoughts. And if another thought comes up, watch it, subtitles, let it go by, go back to the gap. So that's a simple way of saying that. Now, for someone that may still be saying, well, that's great, but I got too many to do that.
Right.
So then there's tools to use, and every tool is only if you can perceive it, it's not really you, go deeper. So once I know it, go deeper than that. So one that I would say that I use is called tapping. And let's say I want to let go of anxiety, and I'm like, I want peace. So I'll create a mantra that might be I am peace. And then I'll go through different tapping spaces. And like first is tapping with your opposite hand on your pinky side of your dominant side hand, and you're tapping, and I'm repeating 4 times, I am peace. I am peace. And I'm breathing with it. Breathe in, I am peace. Next time I breathe in, I am peace. And then I go to the next spot, tapping on my eyebrow, then tapping on the outside of my eye, under my nose, on my chin, inside edge of my collarbone, under my arm, top of my head. And someone can go to my website and pick all that up. And I'll send you the link that you could put with this as well.
All right.
Uh, Yet that space of tapping, what it does now is I've taken my brain, that if I'm having that chatter going on, and I'm giving it direction. I'm giving it something to think about. I am peace. And now when I'm tapping, I'm actually I'm using my left hand, tapping my opposite side. So I'm creating a firing in my brain that is shifting the energy across too. So all that time, for someone that is struggling with just sitting, I can sit for a couple hours without a thought. You know, I've worked on that. It's a muscle that I've worked on strengthening. It wasn't always like that, or there's been times that it's been different than that, but I continue to work on that. I wake up every day in between 4 and 5 a.m. and I go sit for an hour before I start my day, so that I'm training myself to be in that state of peace, so that when I go out, if something comes at me that I might react on a normal basis from, I now have given myself the tool to be still enough to let go of that need to react. And now I become responsible. I'm response able. I'm able to respond to something in front of me from a conscious place of how I want to move forward. So that's how, in this short bit of time, uh, that would be my first thought for someone is, okay, start with tapping and create the mantra every time you sit down and go through the different places. And now just sit and be still after you've done that, and let that grow. It could be 1 minute, it might be 2 minutes, it might be five. No matter what it is, just taking that little bit of time is a big help along the way.
Oh, that's interesting. So essentially, you're through the tapping, you're creating like you referred to it as a firing mechanism. So when you're having these anxiety thoughts or these stressful thoughts, and you create that tapping mechanism where it's, you're tapping your arm or you're tapping your eyebrow or the top of your head, it's triggering your mind to go, okay, I'm tapping now. Somebody may look at you funny, like, what is that dude doing? Tapping my head, and that triggers to I am peace.
Well, those are all the things I went through. They're all meridians. They're
Okay.
all meridians in your body. So you're actually almost programming each meridian to get in sync with your breath, with the mantra, and creating that inside. It's a whole energy thing. I mean, anyone can Google tapping and it'll give all the different reasons of why, but energetically, it's shifting on a cellular level for somebody. And so bringing that forward is why I do that.
Oh, that's interesting. And do you recommend meditation every day, twice a day, best in the morning, best or better to do it at night? Is there a time frame or when to do it, or you just do it when you feel
I
the
think
need?
uh, different reasons. When I wake up in the morning, I want to create the space for my day. If I'm meditating at night, and a lot of people pray before they go to bed, that's a meditation. It's just it's a it's a way of speaking to the creator. Meditation is a way of listening. So I am constantly aware that I am in communication with something bigger than myself. And so, um, yes, I recommend doing it at first thing in the morning. And yeah, I don't care if it's 2 minutes just to start before moving around. Sit up first thing in the bed in the day and put your feet on the ground and sit for 7 breaths and start with that. And let go of the idea that there's a reason why you can't do it. A
Mm,
lot of people get caught in that. When I do stuff at night, I why do I continue to speak to the creator at night or pray? Is because the last thought I have going to sleep is the first one I wake up with. So I like to know, you know, if people are having nightmares, we'll call it, what's the thought that's creating the nightmare? There's something going on, and that one's probably running in their head right before they go to sleep. So I do this thing where I'll take a glass of water. I'll hold the glass of water, knowing Dr. Emoto, the program of water and the study of water, and I'll say what I want. I'll put the water to the side, go to sleep. When I pick up the water, the first thought that comes in my head is, oh yeah, I was thinking about this. So then I drink the water. I program the water. It's just there. It's a simple way for me to remind myself. But all these things can be done without the water. Like that's called praying, right? Then I can even do that without getting on my knees. I can do that when I'm in the day, but I got to create that that discipline. I have so much peace in my life because I've been a disciple of peace. I've disciplined myself to learn what peace looks like and to move accordingly. And so it's all a practice, and life is a practice. If you're not practicing and you're just living, then life's just coming at you.
right.
It just is. And I choose to step into life with accountability for how it's showing up for me.
Yeah. You mentioned in there breathing, and I know that breathing is a big part of meditation. And actually, breathing's really there's different breathing techniques you can do to help with anxiety and stress and all that. But how do you incorporate breathing into your meditation? I think that's important for parents to really understand, because it is a huge role in how our body reacts or doesn't react to things, is our breathing and breathing techniques. So how do you, I mean, give some word on that.
Yeah. I'll say this first. I watched, I don't know if you watched March Madness,
Hmm.
which I'm not really into the name. Yeah. March basketball, right?
Right.
Championship run. And when I watched Coach K, because it was like, hey man, this is history. Like this dude's last go round. When their team would come up to the free throw line, they would pause, take a deep breath, get centered, and then they would shoot. And they made most of their free throws, but they would get themselves so centered and at peace before shooting that they could get in their mechanics and put it right in the hoop. So breathing, yes, it's a very important part, because if I'm not breathing, my body's already tightening. My
Mhm.
constriction is happening on the inside. If I'm breathing, everything becomes more expansive. It gets into a place of peace. When it comes to the meditation system that I teach, there's four pillars to the foundation. Stillness, got to get still first, because every movement I make is a thought. So if I get still, I can actually start to observe my mind. The second one, the second part of that foundation is breathing. And we call it your awakening breath. And it's breathing in for a 4 count, notice the pause, and then breathe out for a 4 count and sit in the pause. And that way of breathing becomes synchronistic with your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. And when my nervous system's in balance, it's actually creating a sense of peace on the inside of me too. Not only do I use that breath in my meditation, anytime that I feel distracted, I go back to that breath because it centers me. So yes, it's a very important part of it. And then after I go into breath, then the last two is getting into your heart space, getting into my heart where all of creation happens within me. And then from there, I go and observe my mind and practice no mind.
Hmm. Okay, that's good. I think it's as I said, when it comes to our breathing, there's been times where my wife and I we see a marriage coach, and um, we when we talk to her, we don't talk to her about we don't have problems, so we talk to her as just kind of make sure we don't have problems, right? But when I've talked to her before, I've talked to her a lot about the anxiety and stress that I have in my life, and she has really tried to get me to really understand my breathing, and when these anxieties come up or the stress comes up, to really focus in on that breathing. And I think she's really trying to say what you're saying is once you focus in on your breathing, it'll help you become more at peace within yourself and help you become centered and allow you to really start to control your thoughts and really understand what those thoughts are that are coming into your head. So for parents that may not know or have never looked into it, if you're going through the stress or anxiety or you have chaos within your home, uh, just try the breathing techniques. You can Google breathing techniques, and there's a billion things on the internet about different breathing techniques. But he talks about 4 breaths in, pause, 4 breaths out, pause. Those kind of things are super important. And if you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend it. And I know as someone who, like Sid, who has taught yoga and meditation all of his life, can attest to the breathing and proper breathing and breathing technique can really help cause or create calm or peacefulness within yourself, and really start to control your thoughts and essentially controlling those anxieties or stresses that come up. So that's really good. Um, for my listeners who want to look you up, learn a little bit more about you, maybe pick up your books or learn some of these different techniques, best places for them to do that.
Well, I'd say the first is to go to artofpeacefulliving.com. And on artofpeacefulliving.com, they can find meditation, all the different things. I know this is Dad's Up podcast. We've got a men's group that takes place for a quest for peace for men, where guys come together and really learn to walk in all these different ways and gain tools. And they can find that on the website under events and things like that, as well as people can go to sidmcnairy.com and track what we're up to and all the many things to come.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to put those links in the show notes so that way people can check it out. But yeah, definitely check out his both his websites, and obviously he's on Instagram as well, and you can find him there. He posts a lot of stuff on his Instagram. But Sid, it obviously you and I have known each other for a while. I appreciate our friendship, appreciate who you are and the person that you are, not only the husband but the dad that you are, and the way that you're trying to create a better life for not only for yourself but those around you that you impact. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on Dad Up and share these tools and techniques with parents. I really do appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. And I look forward to many moments to come. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys very much for joining me and Sid on another episode of Dad Up. Once again, I want to thank my good friend Sid McNairy for joining me. And guys, make sure you guys are checking out his website, both of his websites. Go to his Instagram, check out things that he's doing. Make sure you're following him. But if you're finding that you need more calm in the chaos of family life, certainly check out what he's doing, because he can really provide the tools, tips, techniques, things that you need that can really create that calmness within your family. So I hope that you guys do that. I hope you guys take that opportunity, because it's not only good for you, but it's good for your kids. And as always, like I say, make sure you guys are subscribing to my YouTube channel, to the podcast, so you don't miss a single episode with fabulous guests like Sid come on and share these different techniques to help us become better parents. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up.
Thanks so much for listening to the episode. Make sure you guys subscribe to my podcast and YouTube channel. And please do me a favor, leave a rating and a review. Would love to hear from you and see what you think of the show. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes each week. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Dad Up Podcast.